ECW November to Remember 1996. We get the debut of BWO, the debut of Chris Candido. We're following up the company scaring Kurt Angle away through crucifixion, but most importantly, we discuss if OJ did indeed do it. Right here on the Apron Bump Podcast.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
What is up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Goldberg. Got a little slutty button going here. Threw on the Hawaiian shirt and thought it might be, because it's November to remember. You know how people in November be. Lots of Hawaiian shirts going on, so thought it would be appropriate. Don't know if the slutty button's too slutty, though. I don't know. Y'all on the YouTube tell me. Because if I do this one button up, right? Put this in here, if I can find the hole. Looks a little too much, right? Got no neck action. You gotta get a little throaty with it. But if I undo one button, it's like, Jesus Christ, pal. Good thing we're on pay-per-view, you know what I'm saying? Got no fucking chest hair going right now. Jesus, I'm a smooth seal. But speaking of seals, I give my seal of approval to this show, ECW November to Remember, 1996. What a doozy. What a doozy of a show. We're definitely getting into, it feels like we're approaching a new era of ECW through, because November to Remember, I mean, this is the third one that I've covered. It was their first Extreme Championship Wrestling major event where I started this whole timeline. And it's kind of become their biggest show of the year. And you can see that on this show with what we're going to talk about, culmination of a lot of different storylines. We got Bubba versus Devon. We got Sandman versus Raven for the world title. Terry Funk's in the main event. Two Cold Scorpios leaving. The BWO's here. Chris, I don't want to fucking give everything away here, but we're going to get into all of that here in a few minutes. We're going to discuss ECW. I mean, I just rattled off a bunch of different stuff, all the stories that ECW's got going on. From a storyline perspective, ECW is doing it better than any other company in the U.S. at this point. But are they the best promotion? Well, hey, just had a fucking stroke there. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the podcast where the hardest promotion battle of 1996 continues. WWF versus WCW versus ECW. We take a look at the in-ring, the out-of-ring, and all of the extremities of pro wrestling. We look at the best, the worst. We see if this show here gave us any of those, any of the best or the worst or whatever, of pro wrestling. And this all goes into a scoring system, and whoever has the highest score at the end of 1996, I will purchase a championship belt from the promotion with the most points. So, high stakes. Make sure you stay tuned to the end. Oh, and hey, by the way, if you enjoy this era of ECW, if you just enjoy this era of wrestling in general, you want to get a feel for the hardest promotion battle, what's the best, what's the worst this crazy year of 1996, well, I suggest you go to apronbump.com. You go to the episodes tab, and you can select ECW, and that'll bring you to all of the ECW shows that I have covered in chronological order, starting from November to Remember 94, all the way through that to 95, all the way to 96. 2 years of ECW, as well as the other WCW and WWF stuff from that era as well, all chronologically placed there for your consumption, however you consume me. So do that and make sure you join the Discord as well. Follow me at Apron Bump on all the social medias. All of this stuff will be in the description below. And you know who you should also follow? Juice Springsteen from the Juicebox Wrestling Podcast. Joining me on today's show. Lovely time with my boy Juice. Go check out his podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. follow him on X and find his link tree in the description. All of this will be there for you to consume, to click on, to caress, all of those things. No, he has a great podcast. He covers the current product of pro wrestling, and is also a good follow on social media. So give this boy a follow, a subscribe, a poke, a tickle in the belly button. Making sure you stick your finger in there and twirl it around in a couple circles. And yeah, do that. We have a good old time on this episode. So hey, why bother dilly-dallying anymore? Let's get into it, baby. ECW November to Remember 1996 with myself and Juice Springsteen. It's Bruce Sting. It's Bruce. I am fucking stupid. With myself and Juice Springsteen, the boss, I would assume, right? The boss, the box, Juice. There's something there. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out by the end of this. Hey, who do you prefer, Juventud Guerrero or OJ Simpson? As far as juices go. Or any other juice. Maybe there's another juice.
I prefer Juice WRLD, but he's dead, so.
Oh, so is OJ. Running out of juices.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The juices are expiring, you could say.
There's so many of me left.
Yeah. Are you taking them out? Is that the deal? You're just trying to be the only juice standing?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like over the years, because I began this gimmick in like 2015 is when I started referring to myself as this whenever I was doing some wrestling shows. And then like Juice WRLD popped off like a couple years later. And I'm like, oh, nice. Right. Well, I guess things that, and then OJ always had it. The Juice was Hoovy for a long time. And then Juice Robinson more recently has taken it to another level. And I'm like, I'm just fading to obscurity as if I had any prominence to begin with. But,
Because Juice Robinson's injured, right?
Yeah, I think so. He hasn't been on TV for a while, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily injured.
Did you take him out? Is that the deal? Did you tear his Achilles or whatever the fuck?
I don't know what happened to him, but it wasn't me.
Yeah, yeah, that's what they all say. This is your alibi, right?
Heck, if I did do it.
The glove doesn't fit, right?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Do you know apparently it didn't fit because he didn't take his some medication?
Yeah,
so his hands were swollen?
That, man. I read that and I was like, let's say that he did do it. And
right.
Do you think if he did that on purpose to make sure the glove didn't fit, is that not genius?
I guess genius is a word for it.
Well, I'm putting you into perspective of, you committed you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life if you don't get out of this. And the only way to potentially save it is maybe with the swollen hands, maybe that'll help. And then it worked. Although I feel like the prosecution had their other problems.
Yeah. Did you ever watch that I guess it wasn't a documentary. It was like it was a drama based on it. Yeah, it was the one with Ross from Friends.
Yeah, I was going to say from Friends, yeah.
That's like the only thing I remember from it, but it was great. I need to go back and watch it.
Isn't that the one? Because I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. Isn't that the one where they're like, the jury, and they're like, we want to watch Martin or do we want to watch Seinfeld? And all the white people say Seinfeld and all the black people say Martin. And there's more black people, so they watch Martin instead. Unless that was another different. I think that might have been that. Unless it was another.
You're saying that's OJ, Seinfeld or Friends?
Series. No. I'm saying
OJ, I see. Yeah.
From that episode, from that series, I'm pretty sure that was like a part of it. Unless it was a different OJ series. There's been so many things done on them.
There have been a few things. Things. Hey, do you hate Friends?
I don't hate Friends. I don't. I think comment. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say because I find like with Seinfeld and Friends, you either love one and hate the other, or it's like flip flopped. I haven't really met a lot of people that like both.
There is definitely an animosity, probably from both sides, but I have found getting older and realizing art is subjective, that it really doesn't matter. Like, I can objectively say, though, that I think Seinfeld, they only had funny. Like there was no drama. There was
Mm.
never will they, won't they? And it was just like, if it's not a funny joke, like that's it. Like that's all they stand on. Where Friends has the other stories, like The Office as
Mhm.
well. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into it. So I just don't compare the two. I think you can like them both, but there's definitely been a tribalism has been a word with wrestling. It's definitely been a word with sitcoms.
Oh yeah, Seinfeld can eat my ass. But anyways,
Ah,
no, I need to give Seinfeld another chance. I
okay.
feel like I don't like Jerry, but I like
Hmm,
everybody else in the show for whatever reason. I can't really put
okay.
my finger. I love Friends. I'm a Friends mark. But
Okay. I hate you. I'm sorry.
wow, come
Um,
on now. We need to settle down. All right.
you,
I know.
uh, you, uh, so you said you don't like Jared. Do you not like his acting, or you just don't like him, or?
Yeah, I think it's his. I don't love his comedy, and I think his acting is
Okay.
very bad. I think it's very
Yeah.
acty.
See,
But
and that's been a critique, but as you watch the show going forward, what I've noticed a lot of the times, if there's just scenes, because the thing is, he is the comedian, and
mm,
has been said that like his other co-stars said, this guy, if the show is funny, then he's funny. So he would give and delegate all these great jokes and things to everybody else. And
right.
what I love is whenever he would maybe break during a joke, because then it's like he's really just soaking in the moment. And I love that. But I could definitely see, because he's not an actor, he's a comedian.
Yeah, that's true. They got a hell of a lot of mileage on that show, though. My goodness.
It's
My
still in
goodness.
syndication, man.
It's
It's
uh it's
insane.
it's pretty extreme, but speaking of which,
That's right.
speaking of extreme,
Oh yeah.
November to Remember. So I guess
Oh
first
yeah.
of all, so you like WCW's your go-to, right? As judged by the background.
Yeah.
But are you familiar at all with this era of ECW?
I am. I little background. I'm 31, so I
Same
grew
here.
up with. Oh, look at us! I
Look
grew
at
up with
us.
Hulk Hogan being a bad guy. You know, like my wrestling fandom was kind of flipped and altered by living through the 90s instead of the 80s first. So
Yeah.
as soon as I was very impressionable, 6, 7, 8 years old, not only was WCW and WWF at the time going like Attitude Era, very crazy TV MA, my dad would always find ECW on the whatever channel at 3 in the morning, and tape it, and then it would go to
Yeah.
TNN. And I loved it. My favorite was New Jack, I would say, just because, which is, I was
Yeah.
so happy with this show,
Dude. Yeah.
revisiting it. And again, with the not dubbed music, it really provided a lot of scope. So ECW was a great alternative, and I love that now when people are like, "Oh, AEW is trying to be an alternative," I'm like, "Yeah, well, you got to be an alternative," but ECW was like very not the other two companies.
Right. Yeah, it was yeah, to your point, it was like nobody like they're the ones that introduced the luchadors. They're the guys that brought in all the blood. Not the first ones ever to do it, but to introduce it to a wider, at least the US audience. So, yeah, definitely an alternative here and really at this point, I mean, wrestling all across the board's really heating up. You got the NWO going. You got Stone Cold and Bret Hart building up on WWF TV and then this show November to Remember which correct me if I'm wrong. This is kind of like their biggest show of the year, generally, right? As close to a
Um,
WrestleMania as it got.
yes, from my research, this was like the biggest sellout like that they had done and the quickest that they had sold it out. And if you
Hmm.
notice that they, especially from the beginning, and one of my notes is that they brought up a big show first quarter 97, and that
Hmm.
was their WrestleMania, which we'll discuss Barely Legal,
Yes.
what they're leading up to. But November to Remember always seemed, and this is their fourth one too, so it seemed like a stalwart in their programming.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the card's pretty stacked here. Bringing out guys like Terry Funk and all of the ECW guys that you would think would be on a show in this time period. But we'll get into all the matches, obviously. But overall, what'd you think of the show? Did it meet your expectations? What'd you think of it?
I honestly, I don't know if I had no expectations, but it was just I'm just unfamiliar with what I'm gonna see, and I've seen how many clips, and it had been a very long time since I sat down, watched an ECW show from front to back to get the. It's just interesting. Like this is not a pay-per-view, you know? This is how they were doing shows back then. And it's just from that perspective, seeing that these fans were there every single month. And like this was every show was their WrestleMania. So everybody was over to a degree that other companies wish, you know, their guys get that over with every single person. Like we'll talk about Hack Myers. I can watch a Hack Myers match every day of the week because of
My
the
man.
show. Like it's so funny. So I
he's
thought
a
it was a great
sensation.
show overall. Yeah, man. I thought this was a great show. And I was just blown away by how many things kind of started here or was really coming to fruition. Like the BWO and the FBI looking really young, and Terry Funk making his first appearance in so many years before he, you know, ends up winning at Barley Legal. So a lot of cool stuff happened on this show in particular. I'm looking forward to discussing.
Yeah, it was definitely like, because I've been watching all of these shows chronologically leading up to this, and this show felt more coherent, if nothing else, than a lot of the earlier ECW shows, because it's a lot of chaos in ECW. It's a lot of crowd brawling, mindless weapons, and let me chase you around the arena, hit you with the barbed wire or whatever the hell. But like you said, on this show, we got a lot of seeds being planted to that upcoming Barely Legal pay-per-view. A lot of feuds kind of coming to a climax. We have, you know, I'll say this overall, lots of in-ring wrestling on this show, for better or worse. A lot more than usual. Normally, a bell rings, they're just right to the outside, fighting through the crowd, grabbing frying pans from the audience. And there's some of that on this show, but there was a particularly high amount of just wrestling. And I don't know if they're like, they feel like they have a lot more eyes on them at this point with the upcoming pay-per-view, or if they're prepping for that or what it is. But yeah, but I suppose we'll get into it as we get into the matches. But
yeah, I would say I agree. Although, God, it almost seemed like every single match had blood in it, which we, you know, discussed earlier about ECW. Well, they weren't the first, of course, to do blood, but it was very like, if you're going to have a match that's going to go outside the ring, someone's going to bleed. But the in-ring, I was pretty impressed by the amount of talent too. That so young, like Kid Cash. My God.
You mean Davey, Morton, Tyler, Jericho?
He said it. I was like, what is this a rib? Like, is this really happening? And I looked up on his Wikipedia, and it did show that he was referred to as this first name. So funny.
Because I was like half paying attention when I heard the name, and I was like, hell, is it probably just some jobber? Who cares? And then I look up, and it's like, oh, it's Kid Cash. Like, what the hell? I didn't realize he was in ECW this early. I thought that was later down the line.
I didn't know that either.
But before that, because he's in the opening match, the show actually starts with our boy Tazz coming out. And he's coming out. Joey Styles is like, this promo wasn't scheduled. It wasn't on the format. And Tazz grabs the mic. Of course, Bill Alfonso's with him. And Tazz, because he's pissed about Sabu. He wants Sabu. And he's basically like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. He's basically like, he points to Paul Heyman, who's behind the camera. And he's like, yeah, I'm squashing your angle, Paul. Yeah, I'm ruining the surprise. I know this isn't this wasn't scheduled, but he's breaking the fourth wall, which I think is very interesting because I'm watching the WWF and WCW along with all this stuff. And it's so funny to see like how much of an influence the NWO had on everyone, because after the NWO started and they started doing the hyper realistic stuff, you got Stone Cold, which felt like especially in rewatching it, it's so clear it's a direct like response to the NWO.
Yeah.
And then here you have this kind of breaking fourth wall kind of stuff, which in the past couple of years, at least that I've been watching, ECW hasn't really done a lot of. So I don't know. I guess you were watching at this time. Did you get a sense of this like added realism at this point?
Yeah, it very much was breaking the fourth wall. At this point too, it was still fascinating that they had Todd Gordon as the figurehead, you know, with Paulie kind of behind the scenes. And maybe I'm nuts, you know, but did Todd Gordon sound like his voice? Did it not sound eerily similar to Tony Khan?
You know, now that you mention it, I could see it.
If you just like listen to him talk, in this show, and it's just funny looking at how Tony Khan kind of does stuff and how he talks. I was like, man, that's and they're both like little. This. You got to bug your eyes out too.
But anyways,
Yeah,
so
the breaking the fourth wall though, I'd like that. Taz at this point, eh, man, I hate that the WWE messed him up. Like he looked like a world beater at every
yeah,
point in this show, whether it was just this promo and his little like all leather get up, or later on when he comes out with Team Taz, like the presentation for a company that runs out of the same building every month
mhm,
looked incredible. Like this is a guy I'm believing could beat anybody, no matter how tall he is. So I
right.
enjoyed this segment quite a bit.
I agree. And I was watching this. I had the same thought. I was like, God, Taz is such a badass. He feels like he can
Yeah,
just take out anybody. He's like, what, 5'9" or some shit? Like, he's not a
yeah.
huge dude, but I believe that he could just take anyone on. And it prompts me to think to current times. And I'm wondering why I don't have the same believability about Hook personally.
Hmm.
Because size wise, they're not that different. I mean, Taz has more
Right.
muscle than Hook does.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you think it's just the mic ability? Does Hook maybe need a Bill Alfonso? I don't know how much you keep up with the current stuff, but
I keep up with it a bit. I watch it every week, but
okay, just a little bit.
yeah, but I think the presentation is a lot of it, and it's tough when you compare the two because Taz, a towel over his head. He didn't talk all that often. He had Bill Alfonso, but Taz could
Hmm.
definitely cut a promo. Hook, at least from the start, had that aura of like, I'm not probably gonna say much, if anything at all, and I'm just gonna beat your ass however long it takes me, and that's
Yeah.
it. Hit my music. But AEW and just how wrestling is, it's tough to have a presentation that everybody is going to believe that is
Hmm.
very silent. Everybody's on social media, everybody's out there. It's tough to have that like secretness that what else is behind this guy. Taz, like you said, he looked like he's a tinier guy, but wait till you get him in the ring. Like that's what spoke. And maybe
Yeah.
just a presentation thing with Hook. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I also think maybe at this time, the MMA style wasn't as widespread as it is
Nope.
today. So Hook's style isn't as unique as Taz's style was at the time. So that probably plays into it as well.
Absolutely.
Um, but more on Taz later, I suppose.
Oh
But
yeah.
first, before that, we got to talk a little Davey Morton, Tyler Jericho. That's not just us bullshit. That's what he was built as. Taking on Big Stevie Cool. Of course, accompanied by the Blue Guy and Hollywood Nova. So this is the debut of the Blue World Order. Big fan? Big fan?
Yeah, so I literally this past Christmas, I bought my dad a BWO shirt, which is really funny and ironic that this show
Oh,
happened
yeah.
like it did.
You're not wearing it?
Um, no, no. I love that. What November? So what was it? July,
Yeah.
4 months, and they're parodying it on a show, and they did Steve Mania back when Austin was a part of ECW, and
Right.
parodies have been a huge deal with ECW. They love just like showcasing what their talent can do with a gimmick that they kind of don't buy somewhere else. And
Right.
I thought this was hilarious. I think Blue Meanie of all, he kept doing the like the Ramon like shake
The what?
taunt. The
Mm. Okay, thanks. Now I have that clip just to use.
exactly. You need me to do it again? You need me
No,
to do?
I'm
I'll do
good.
one hand. Okay. But no, man, like he just leaning into it. Like they bought what they were doing. They weren't
Mhm.
like, we're just gonna make fun of it. They're like, we are our own version, and you guys can find it funny if you want.
Mhm. Yeah, it's because I didn't watch ECW as it was happening. I'm watching it all after the fact. But the only thing I knew about Stevie Richards from ECW is the Blue World Order. Like the BWO is
Wow.
one of the main things I knew about ECW. So that's a sign of
Okay.
how I don't know how long it lasted, but gosh damn pal, it is
Yeah.
the insiders instead of the outside. It's just like it's stupid,
It's
but it's the way they
it
deliver it is so funny.
So I have a few notes there.
Please.
First, did you notice? So the BWO is coming out. They got these dudes with the signs. One dude he climbed over the guardrail and tripped and fell.
No, I didn't notice that.
Oh my God. I just saw the sign just like go out of frame and it was hilarious. The toothpick was a chicken bone for the Blue
course.
Meanie, which was genius. You said the insiders. As a WCW fan, I will note that in the latter deathbed stages of WCW, DDP and Kevin Nash were the insiders and won the tag titles in like late 2000. They called themselves the insiders as a play on Nash being the outsider, but everything is a swerve, bro. So
Gross.
they were like, we're the insider. I know. So I heard that. And I'm like, man, did WCW steal everything that ECW stole off them?
Did they feud with creative
NWO?
control?
Oh my God. I don't even want to. let's stick to ECW because of how how it all ended. Let's be real here. And then the other thing, it's funny that Nash was mentioned. Joey Styles took a dump on him saying he has 3 moves. He can't move his feet. It was interesting to say the least. And Joey Styles put over some other commentators too later on, which we'll talk about. So
Did he
Joey
put them
Styles
over?
didn't care. He put one over. He put Kevin Kelly over.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if that was sarcastic or not, but
Well, it was after dumping on the other 3, so I feel like it was somewhat sincere.
But yeah, to your point, it's really gonna handicap Stevie because he can only do 3 moves, and Stevie does do like the Nash elbows in the corner and the sidewalk slam, busts out the jackknife, which wasn't really a jackknife, it was more of a power bomb of sort. I don't know, but maybe that's nitpicky. I don't know. Felt like there was a lot of offense targeted towards the genitalia in this one.
Oh man, every other move is a low blow is in my notes.
What is the because it's a lot coming from Davey Morton, Tyler Jericho, just assaulting the dick and balls of Stevie Richards. I don't know if he has a vendetta. I don't know if he slept with his wife. There's a lot going on here that I don't think we're in the know of, but yeah.
I was like, are we serious? Like, I get it. Like, it's an offensive. First of all, it's ECW. Everything in this show was legal.
Yeah, I guess
everything. But to see it so often, only in this match, I don't think any other match really had that many. It was like 5 or 6 low blows, and I was like, this is getting insane. The other thing, one other move I want to note: Kid Cash. Well. Excuse me, David, Morton, Tyler, Jericho. There was a table, like the ring table, or the comment, whatever it was, the ring bell and all that stuff was out there, and he dove over that table to the outside onto Stevie. Like he could have done it on any other side of the ring and didn't have to clear an entire table, like the whole length of it, not just the side of it. And he did it, which was pretty impressive. Now knowing where he ended up in his career, it's pretty cool to see it in 96.
Yeah, I mean that was his thing, right? Like the famous shots of him diving into the crowd and all that shit. But yeah, some very creative low blows here, I will say at least. Cash almost damn near paralyzes Stevie with like a tiger pile driver. It's like they didn't know if it was gonna be a face buster or a power bomb, and it just ended up somewhere in the middle. Stevie throws out a diamond cutter as well, which is funny because DDP's like just now starting to get hot. And I think there was like 3 or 4 diamond cutters on this show, and they got called the diamond cutter every time by commentary, and there was DDP chants. So it's just funny to see like across promotions what's over at this time.
And DDP, like especially a WCW entity being kind of revered and used in a way, but clearly he was over. And I like that it was the diamond cutter. Like no one said, "Oh, it's the Ace Crusher," or it's the Stunner.
Right.
DDP was the guy doing it and really making it famous. So
yeah, and he's only getting started at this point. So jackknife by Stevie, like I mentioned, for a 2 count, and then he goes for the sweet chin music. I call it the sweet chin music because he does a little tune up the band deal. But gets countered into what? A low blow. And then he gets rolled up for a 2 count. And so there's some pretty good action here, amongst all the chaos. And then Cash hits the ropes. Stevie ducks. They got a counter back and forth. And then Stevie hits another Stevie kick for the win. I feel like Cash kicked out at like 3.1 for whatever reason. I don't know if this was like a botch or what. It felt kind of awkward, but I don't know. Stevie got the win here, and honestly, it was like a pretty solid opening match, I thought.
Yeah, again, the expectations, I didn't know what was going to lead off this show. I think I briefly looked at the card, but then kind of just ignored it until I watched this show. And I was like, all right, we got the BWO kind of being a thing now. And let's see what this match has. And I'm Kid Cash. All right. So I thought the first match was pretty solid.
Yeah. And I mean, especially because, like I said, the show is leading up to this. The opening match is usually just like, hey, let's throw 6 jobbers out there and have Sandman just kick the shit out of them in 5 seconds and get the show in. So it was a very like welcome change of pace, seeing some like actual good action in there. But we changed the tone a little bit here with Axel Rotten versus the Shah, Hack Meyers. Whew. I'm glad you're a big fan of the Shah because he's the greatest wrestler to ever live, as far as I'm concerned. But there was not a ton to this match, but there was something very like, I don't know, comforting about how simple and like just to the roots of ECW this was. It's fight around the ring, let's throw some chairs in there, throw you against the barricade, fighting the crowd a little bit. So I thought, for what it was, I thought it was fine. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like you said, it's kind of just what ECW was at its core. And I liked seeing Axel Rotten in this earlier, before it's him and Balls Mahoney really taking over. I know that him and Ian had the Taipei death match and whatnot. I think that was probably before this.
Yes.
But after the fact, like they get so over with Balls. So again, a younger Axel Rotten. And yeah, I had not really been aware of Hack Meyers as I was growing up, like when ECW was around, but then watching like the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD and seeing some hardcore TVs that they'd have on WWE 24/7 before it was the network. Like I was like, Hack Meyers, who the hell is this guy? And then the gimmick of every time he hits someone, they're screaming Shaw. And correct me if I'm wrong, were they chanting shit every time someone else did it to him?
They sure were.
That is genius. Everybody was over in ECW.
I mean, Hack Meyers, and I've said this before, he's just one of those guys. I don't know why I've never heard of him, because ever since I started rewatching at November to Remember '94. So I've watched every show between then and now, and Hack is over everywhere. Or I guess they're only in Philly, but every time he's out, he's always over. And I'm just wondering when he fizzles out, if he does. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there's some chair shots. Hack goes for his finisher, which is, I don't know what the name of it is. It's like a top rope face buster of some sort. It's not very pretty looking, but
no.
Axel counters it, throws Hack face first into a chair, and then hits Hack with a pedigree onto the chair for the win, which I feel like we saw a bunch of pedigrees on this show. That could be crazy.
I feel like we saw a couple.
Yeah.
Not as many the low blows in the first match, though.
Oh, yeah, easily. No, low blow. If there was like a count of every move on the show, it'd be low blows at the very top by a country mile.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching this match, and I don't know, maybe if you experienced this going to a live show or not, but if you're in the crowd and somebody grabs your drink, like it's a full drink, and they use it as a weapon, do you get mad at that?
Honest, me? No, I just buy another one. And plus, I'm a part of the show without me saying I want to be a part of the show. Like, I paid for the drink and the ticket, but this is a bonus. So who the hell do I care?
Even if it's today and you're paying like $20 for a beer or whatever?
The prices suck, but I mean, and especially now, depending on where I'm at, if I'm in like if I'm like front row, then I paid crazy money anyway. But if I'm out in like the cheaper seats and they made it to me and then took my drink, then I'd be pissed.
Right, because they sought you out to ruin your night.
Right, they're like, look at this guy. We're taking more money out of his pocket.
I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
What about you? What do you feel about that?
Depends how many drinks I had before that. Okay. I feel like there's a peak.
Does it depend on what drink too?
Yeah.
Like what kind of drink?
Yeah, if it's an IPA, I'll be like, what? I mean, like I paid a lot for this. It's fancy. But,
or like a cocktail.
Yeah. Oh man, if it was like a bourbon and coke and they took it just to throw in stupid Hack Meyers' face, I'd be livid. And also, it depends what the match is too. If it was Axel Rotten versus Hack Myers, I might be a little pissed. But if it was like, I don't know, main
you'd
event.
be saying Shaw right along with him. Let's be honest.
Yeah, as long as I get to touch the Shaw's shoulders a little
Right,
bit,
there you go. You can have
that's
a drink.
that's a barter as far as I'm concerned. But man, after that we got a little Dudley warfare. Bubba Ray versus Devon. The well, obviously the two people that people think of when they think of Dudleys, but there is a
unless you were an ECW contingent lover like me. Everybody in this match, I was like, oh my god, I forgot that this guy was there.
Who's your favorite Dudley?
I like Big Dick Dudley. I really do. He just comes in and I don't know, like he just him doing a moonsault like it's Vader out there.
The Big Dick Salt?
Yeah, I'm here for it. But everybody, I wanted to note this, like everybody has like a purpose, like in this match. Like Bubba was the lovable guy with the stutter, and they were very sympathetic. So then Devon's the cheating heel. Spike, everybody loves, and he's just clearing house. He's doing whatever. And then Big Dick is just like destroying everybody. Like they all have little gimmicks in their own. And I love that they had that. And there was a fan on the hard cam that was also kind of dressed like Big Dick Dudley. So it just all worked, man. It was great.
You sure he wasn't a true Dudley? Maybe he was medium Dick Dudley. Who knows?
Yeah, from Dudleyville. Yeah.
Flaccid
Who knows?
Dudley.
We talked about the bloodline family tree. I'd hate to see the Dudley family tree. That would be it might be still going.
Man, so when Cody says there's more than one royal family, talking about the Dudleys. Oh, well, this is kind of so I'm like loosely familiar of this story. I've seen everything leading up to it, and basically we're at a point where Devon, he wants control of the family, but Big Dick is standing in his way. And like you said, Bubba's like the sympathetic, like he's the fan favorite, so he's basically the figurehead for the good side, quote unquote, and Devon's on the other side. So we have this match here, and it's a fun little match. There's a ukulele gets involved, I believe.
Yes, I was gonna say I have ukulele with a question mark.
Yeah, I thought it was more of a violin, but Joey Styles thought it was a ukulele, and I trust Joey Styles with my life. So
it looked more like a ukulele purely because it just looked like a littler guitar. Violins have like that. I don't know, the hand. I feel like it'd been a lot harder if he hit him with a violin. Like that would have been. Rough.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, why is like a ukulele the weapon you bring to a unless it wasn't supposed to be a weapon. Maybe they just wanted their ukulele with them to play it.
Hey, it's better than your drink.
Is it? I guess.
Well, if you brought did you bring a ukulele to the ECW arena to play it?
Maybe
ukulele Dudley.
They're gonna do an Enter Sandman remix with the ukulele. I don't know.
Which we'll get to that, but I'm bummed that Sandman just kind of came in. The hell was that? I waited this whole damn show. I got to hear Natural Born Killers, but I didn't get to hear Enter Sandman.
Yeah. There's you can't. You only get so much, I guess. But yeah, this one also, look, with the Dudleys, it's another one that always reverts to like a street fight, a lot of chair shots. But this one was very wrestle heavy, I would say. After the ukulele and shit like that in the crowd, but. Bubba hits his stuttering power bomb, which is hilarious. One of my favorite moves of all time. Devon with a crazy headbutt from the top rope. But ultimately, Bubba wins with a pop-up diamond cutter, which looked beautiful. Especially for the time. Very, very innovative.
I know. It's crazy. He was coming up with innovations before DDP was.
Yeah, for real. So, but that gives Bubba the win. Or at least so we think. Joel Gertner has something to say about that,
and he was coming into his own here. I was like, man, he hasn't turned heel yet until right now.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's been like, is he heel, is he face? But he comes out here in a blazer and no shirt, and that's that's your sign. No good person does that, No. But he says that. Devon's actually the winner. He won on points. It's like, what? I don't know. I don't know. Were you scoring this one? Maybe he's right.
I was not. However, the ukulele might have put over whoever used that on points
Right.
to me. The other thing, people this whole WrestleMania season, we're talking about Brett versus Owen, Matt versus Jeff, Jimmy versus Jay. This was my WrestleMania. Bubba Ray versus Devon right here. These are the real brothers that are fighting.
Yeah, it's this match was better than Jimmy versus Jay, but that's a whole other
Oh
story.
my God, by a mile. Not even close.
You know what's funny? How like brothers almost never have good matches with each other. It feels like
Honestly, outside of Brett and Owen, I don't know if there was one
Yeah.
that I thought was really, really good.
I mean, this match worked for ECW, but like
Of course.
Matt and Jeff.
That was a disappointment. I thought the Jimmy and Jay interaction during the main event of night 2 was more exciting and better than the entire match that they
Yeah.
had. And it was like 2 minutes worth.
Right. That's all they needed, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you noticed, there was an air horn. I call it a pathetic air horn that happened a couple times in this match. I'm not sure if it was when Big Dick was in there, but like it was when the chaos was happening and they used it during certain moves. I'm not sure if you are familiar with CZW or have watched any CZW in the past.
Yeah.
That is the thing that's always happening, is that air horn during any, like, if you watch any of like the craziest spots in CZW history with like Nick Mondo or Zandig, you always hear the air horn as like a background of, oh my God, what's happening? So to hear like this really like pathetically sounding like terrible air horn, I'm like, hey, they were trying, but it didn't get popularized until a few more years later.
Yeah.
And the fact that they allowed it in, that would never happen now. They'd kick your ass out of there.
I mean, I remember, watching WWF in like early 2000s even, and there was air horns. I mean, I think they got like confiscated because you would only hear it like once, and then you wouldn't hear it again.
Yeah.
But another weird choice of object to bring to a wrestling show. But I don't know.
Better than a vuvuzela.
That's a good point. A what?
A vuvuzela.
What is a vuvuzela?
You remember the long tubed instrument they did at the World Cup a couple World Cups ago? That was like, they sounded like everybody had one, and when everybody was using them, they all sounded like bees. It sounded like bees were buzzing the entire soccer match.
What does it sound like?
But
okay.
Like 80,000 of them, and it was just like, I don't know. You'd have to look that up. But
is it like what's the Australian? It's in like the Outback commercials.
Yeah. I love making that noise.
Giving me a lot of gold here for sound drops. Just telling you.
Perfect.
Australian instrument. I gotta know. I'm not gonna be able to. Didgeridoo.
Oh my God, that's what. Okay, didgeridoo. Check out vuvuzela real quick. I think you'll know if you see it.
No shot. I'm gonna spell this right. Vuvuzela.
Just think of it like Venezuela.
Okay. It looks like a toy. This is a cone.
It reminds me of the, the Ricola commercials.
Oh, is that a vuvuzela?
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's just a horn, right? Yeah,
the like Ricola, horn. That's a horn. Yeah, the vuvuzela is just like a weird plastic thing you get at the fair or a huge margarita in.
Tell you what, man, 220 something episodes. I've never had a vuvuzela reference on here, so that's a first.
All right,
so that's something.
Glad to contribute.
Yeah, you did. But no vuvuzelas here after the match. It's just a lot of chair shots. Axel gets involved. Spike Dudley gets in there to try to even the odds, but Devon and Axel end up on top until Big Dick comes out, straightens everybody out. I think Devon runs. Axel, I think, even runs away.
Yeah.
Or does he? Or is he the one that gets dick salted?
Oh, I thought it was was it Gertner that got dick salted?
Yes, you're right. Gertner got dick salted. That's right.
I was like, man, Joel Gertner, I'm happy that I have a spot in ECW, but I don't know if I'm signing up to take a big dick salt from, was he like 350 maybe from the top rope?
Gotta be close to it. Yes. I look at that guy and I'm not, he's not one that I think can do a moonsault, and he's coming off a leg injury too. He had a broken leg for like a year.
I know.
And now he's just throwing out moonsaults. Like, all right, I guess.
My big memory of him is whenever Tommy Dreamer throws him off the podium, like the big, like the where they have the commentators, the crow's nest.
Yeah.
During the Barely Legal main event.
Right.
He just launched. He kind of he choke slams Big Dick, but it's really like a push, and Big Dick just kind of throws
Yeah.
himself off. But
There's
great
they use
visual.
they use that little scaffold podium deal a lot here, and we'll
Yeah.
bring up one. I don't think they do it on this show specifically, but in the lead up they do for one of the matches at least. But yeah, that's our Dudley. That's where the Dudley saga is at this point, which I don't know if anything really progressed here. But it was fun. Good old fashioned big dick fun. You know what I'm saying?
Love it.
But boy howdy, that leads us into an ECW World Tag Team #1 contendership match. The team of Rob Van Dam and Sabu versus the Eliminators. Whoo! This was something.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I was very excited to see this down the pike, and I was more than thrilled to see the non-finish, especially when the entire arena knew exactly what was going to happen, what they wanted, and even after 2 false, potential finishes of that, they got what they wanted to, and I did too. It was an amazing overall story with these two plus the Gangstas in the end.
Yeah, because ultimately this was the first time limit was at 20 minutes or 15.
I want to say 20, and then they did another 5 and another 5, and the second 5 was not 5 minutes. It was like 2 minutes. Right. They're like 5 minutes, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
So roughly 30 minutes, probably 35. Combining the in between whatever. So a lot of time dedicated to this, but man, it's just so the Eliminators. I mean, they're the best tag team going at this point. I would probably say, right?
Yes. I put that all 4 of these guys are innovators in their own way, but Cronus and Saturn, I think, are so underrated. Saturn specifically, I mean, he's, I think, got a lot more praise in the more recent years. But John Cronus is like a bigger dude, and he's hitting like crazy moves that some other guys won't even attempt. Well, unless you're Big Dick Dudley.
Right, of course. Big Dick is the bar that everybody's striving to achieve.
It's a big bar.
Big bar he has on him. But Cronus with the handspring moonsault over the top rope.
Oh my god, that was probably that. I had that in there as well. I saw it like coming, and I'm like, I think he's gonna hit the cartwheel here. And lo and behold, he did it, and it was unbelievable. And it was like perfect. He almost overshot.
He's
like, that's so much athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, we can get in. I mean, there's a lot of spots that happen in this match, but ultimately, like, my overall thought on this match, it felt like there was no plan and they were just doing shit. So it kind of felt rough around the edges, but they were also talented that it kind of worked. Like, it was almost like a quote unquote shoot fight, but with really athletic moves. It was kind of an in between there. So it was it felt like a car crash, but I mean, I enjoyed it. For sure.
A beautiful car crash, if you will. And you said it felt like a shoot. There was a spot here, a rest spot, and Sabu threw the chair at Saturn.
Yeah.
And Saturn blocks it and immediately was livid. And I was like, man, I don't know if they planned that, but they worked around it, because by the end of the match, I'm like, okay, they're all working together, but boy, he looked pissed.
Yeah, the crowd knew too. The crowd got amped for that because they knew shit was about to go down. Because what Saturn has RVD and a chin lock in the middle of the ring, and then you just
wrestling.
A chair from out of frame comes flying in. Saturn like kind of blocks it with his elbow, but his elbow like goes through the chair, and then he gets rid of that chin lock and charges Sabu like he's gonna murder him. And shout out OJ, but they fight to the outside. Sabu gets knocked into the crowd, and then Saturn jumps into the crowd onto. So they figured it out at some point, so they didn't get completely off the rails. But my goodness, there's a lot of good energy in this match. Any other spots in particular stick out to you in this one?
I don't know. Let's see. I put the rest spot in with the chair. I said that almost every match this entire night had chair inclusion of some sort. But I loved that when Sabu had a chair, outside of obviously throwing it at people, he used it for elevation and like using it to help his own moves, which, like, I know there was no DQ and like, what are we talking about? It's ECW, but I love that he did not have to hit you with a chair for it to be super effective. And we'll get to that in the triple threat as well, because there was a spot where he tries a couple times.
Yeah, that's not always perfect.
So, no.
Yeah, functional use of the chair. We need more of that. We also got shout out Perry Saturn's elbow drop, which is, in my opinion, maybe the best elbow drop of all time. You know, respect to Macho Man, respect to Kyrie, but gosh damn, pal, this Saturn elbow is just beautiful.
Yeah. The height that he gets is pretty insane.
The impact, the accuracy is just, it's all great. We get the third diamond cutter of the night from Saturn to Sabu. Like I said, just feels like a lot of improv, a lot of, people aren't prepared for chairs getting thrown at them, but then they do.
I wonder how that works. Like, do you think they were just like, look, we might use these, or do you think they just kind of call it in the ring? Like, I've always thought, like, for ECW of all places, outside of a strictly like in-ring match, how much is going to be ad-lib? Because it seems like a lot.
It seems like this whole match was, especially with the fact that they know there's not going to be a finish. So it's just like, we'll fuck around for 30 minutes and then.
That's a good point. It might be a better match because of that. It's like, well, let's just hit all our spots.
Yeah. But the first time limit bell rings, like you said, the crowd immediately starts chanting for a three-way dance.
I was like, okay.
Todd Gordon comes in. He's like, nah, you're going to get 5 more minutes, which is usually the opposite of what happens.
Yeah.
I feel like the crowd always wants 5 more minutes and then they don't get it, but now they're getting it forced upon them. So match gets back underway. RVD and Sabu attempt a doomsday device of some sort. I don't know if it was supposed to be a Rana, a leg drop, but it ended up just being paralyzation almost.
Yeah.
But so.
Oh yeah, there was a move later on. I can't recall what match. It might have been the Mikey Whipwreck match that there was like a botched spot that Candido kind of saved, but had it not, like, he saved it after the fact, but during the move, I thought someone's gonna get really hurt here.
Yeah,
So I'm glad it didn't.
Was it a tombstone? Like he caught him into a tombstone?
No, but I thought that I have that as something devastating. It was what was it?
If it wasn't in this match, we can
get to it in the next match. It's fine. Yeah, we don't have to talk about it now.
Little tease.
Little tease, yeah. Big dick tease.
Big dick tease. Or whatever. Whatever kind of tease you like. Sabu with a triple jump moonsault, which is always hit or miss, but it looked good in this match. Cronus, like you said, just flying everywhere. Crazy powerbomb he hits at some point. RVD throws out another pedigree. And then eventually time elapses. It's a few times this happens. The bell rings. Crowd wants a 3-way. Todd Gordon's like, nah, you're getting more. Then eventually he's like, all right, fine. You guys have a 3-way later in the show. But I thought, like, at least like the last portion of it, it felt like there was a lot of urgency, which I thought was fun.
That helped.
Overall, like I said, the energy of this match was just fun. It was nonsense, but it was entertaining nonsense, I'll say.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of all 4 of these guys. So to see him, like we kind of just discussed, like it's kind of just ad-libbing, and you do the best moves you can do to us, and we'll kind of just tit for tat, unless we're not going to tell you we're throwing a chair in, then figure it out on it.
Yep. This is a very ECW match, if nothing else. But after that, we got a 3-way for the tag titles later in the show. But before that, we got Mikey Whipwreck versus Chris Candido, who has just recently debuted in ECW. No longer Skip. So the crowd always chants for Sonny when he's out there. So before the match even really gets underway, he grabs the mic and he's like, "Hey, Sonny ain't fucking here, okay?" He's what did he say? He said something else.
Well, he said where she was. She's at the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Survivor Series was the next night, and that's when they did the Hall of Fame the night before at MSG.
Right.
Which will play into the Too Cold Scorpio of it all later on.
Yes. So just kind of like this feels like it wasn't an enhancement match because it was a pretty competitive match, but it was like a way to kind of introduce Chris Candido, because I think he had like one TV match at this point in ECW, so just a way to get him on the card. But I was a big fan of Chris Candido at this point. This match, though, I mean, I don't know, it didn't do a lot for me. I don't know if it was bad necessarily, but it didn't really warm my cockles. What do you think?
I enjoyed this match. I think highly of both these guys. I think Mikey Whipwreck is the consummate like pros pro of a guy
Mhm.
who, well, both of them really, but for like you said, Chris Candido getting one of his first matches on a bigger stage for ECW at least. Who would you want to have in there that's going to have a solid match, can get some offense in, but it can also take some offense for sure. So I
Mhm.
want to say it was like a sunset flip maybe, but he like caught him. He like oh, it was like a flip backwards, and I think that like Mikey landed face first on the ground. I or on the mat. I can't
Mhm.
recall what they were trying for, but it was clearly like botched, and Candido just immediately went for like face punches and then tried to pin him, and then they moved on. But
Right.
it never like I noticed it, but how it came off kind of just seemed like Mikey escaped, didn't get to land it, and then they just kept going. But that's what I put in here. A pro, both were pros, like really helping each other out, not making anything look too messy.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I even noticed it. So hopefully, I guess it wasn't too terrible. Um,
No.
but the crowd noticed that the ref's shirt came untucked and they were chanting,
Yes.
"Tuck his
Tuck your
shirt
shirt in.
which is
The referee, John Pee Wee Moore, who I thought looked like Ricky Starks.
was he though? What?
I thought his hair was kind of all shaved, and then a little bit of a top part was there,
Right.
but just from the vantage point, he looked like it's a young Ricky Starks in there. I don't know.
I was just, oh yeah, he was. Because I was googling to see how old Ricky Starks was to see if he was even born at this point. But he's older than I thought. How old do you think Ricky Starks is?
Oh, 35.
34. 34.
Okay.
Makes me sad. I see 34 and I'm like, oh, he's pretty
I know.
old, but we're like 3 years away from
I
that.
know. It's like what and we're just talking about him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, it's a solid match. Definitely felt like kind of a weird spot for it in between the tag team shenanigans here.
Right, but
Um,
I think it was a nice cool down, especially knowing that the tag match is next, especially with those
yeah.
guys. I don't know. Now, I would wager this show was probably edited this way. Do you think
Mm,
that this match was actually in between the two?
it's a
Because
good point.
even just one match in between what they just did, those four guys, and then coming into the chaos of the following match, I feel like had to have more than 10 minutes to spare. So I think the editing probably
Or there
made
just
it.
wasn't any matches in between, and maybe they
Could
just
you
split it
imagine?
up. I don't
That's
know.
very possible too. Huh.
Um,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, but I guess before we get into that, we'll just Candido wins with a crazy top rope power bomb, which I think he calls the blonde bombshell at a certain point.
I put it as Avalanche Awesome Bomb.
Yes, that too. That too. But
Yeah.
I mean, it just if I was a wrestler, I can't see myself taking that move. That seems gnarly. Like it goes so fucking
Yeah,
wrong.
dude. The like you said though, the moonsault caught by Candido into the two.
Mm,
It wasn't that he never even adjusted Mikey. Like he was just like, all right, Mikey's head safe, and just
yeah,
dropped him right
yeah.
on his head, which I thought was brutal. But I thought it was a solid match. I like the in ring of all these matches, maybe outside of the 3 25-second matches that Too Cold Scorpio had, even though he hit his top rope moves, I
Right.
thought were pretty solid all together. So
Yeah, no, not too bad here, not too bad. But we're back into the tag team title situation. Now we are at
oh
that
yeah.
three-way. Uh basically like those teams that we saw earlier. RVD and Sabu versus the Eliminators versus the champions of the Gangstas. And I'll just say this because I've been watching all these shows on Peacock with the dubbed
Oh
in
my
music.
god.
And I recently stumbled upon a link with all these shows with the original music. And good googly moogly, does that make a difference? I mean, the atmosphere with Natural Born Killers in the background. I could have watched these guys brawl around the arena all night, I think. It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was always the best part of ECW was they just used everybody's music whatever they wanted. Like
Mhm.
you heard I think they had AC/DC earlier. I think they had White Zombie at some point.
Oh, yeah. Metallica, of
Playing
course.
Metallica, of course, and then this song. So I was always a fan of that. And then once ECW was like, they put it on the WWE Network back, in 2014, 2015. And the dub music they use for New Jack is awful. In the ghetto. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. It's like such a terrible attempt, but nothing beats, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. It's a great, like you said, it just, if there's going to be one part of the show that you can absolutely say this is different than the rest, it's New Jack being out there. The music's always going and it's just chaos. It's chaos and it's unbelievable.
Dude, I was just like smiling during this whole thing because it's just like, it's a New Jack match. You don't compare this to like a work rate, cruiserweight style or strong style. It's a New Jack match. You know what you're going to get. And I thought it was a fun little addition to what we've already seen from these tag teams, or the other two tag teams. So, of course, lots of plunder here. We got cooking sheets. We got chairs. Any other weapons come into play here that you remember? It's a lot of trash can, of course.
Yeah. Oh, I think later on in another match they used a video camera. So I guess that's not in this match.
Right.
But it was honestly... I feel like throughout as ECW grew, New Jack had more and more innovation, guitars, keyboards, whatever it took to really emphasize the intensity of the match. As I said earlier with Sabu, he tries 2 triple jump moonsault or triple jump dives to the table outside. They had Cronus and Mustafa on there.
Right.
And then, I don't know, they weren't ready to do the spot, or they got off, they weren't wanting to do the spot. And then on the third try, Sabu just goes through it anyway. It was a very bizarre, I don't know what they, ad-libbing or what. I don't know what it was, but...
Right.
I mean, it was entertaining, Yeah.
It was just more of just like, hey, let's just do stuff. We'll figure it out. I might fall. Who cares? We'll try it again. Just the Sabu thing, I guess. But it's at this point where they turn the blood up. It feels like Cronus is pouring blood. Saturn's bleeding. Everybody's I think New Jack was probably bleeding when he came out there. He was the original Moxley, this guy.
I know.
So they're all brawling everywhere. And then out comes Tazz, which I don't even know if I mentioned that, because in his beginning promo, he was like, I'm going to find Sabu during this show. And we're going to fight at Barley Legal or whatever he said. So Tazz comes out, but RVD, I guess, tries to protect Sabu. So RVD goes to attack Tazz. After 45 minutes of fighting. Gets choked out by Tazz. And in the ring, the Eliminators hit the total elimination on Sabu.
I don't think you said that move correctly. How would Joey Styles say that?
Elimination! I can't do it.
Elimination.
That's better. We'll use that one.
His voice throughout this entire show, even on 2 counts,
he's great.
No, he didn't. I love Joey Styles, and for him to be solo, I know that he went to a 2-man team with Tommy Dreamer for Barely Legal 97, but for him to do these shows by himself, assuming it was dubbed in Paulie's basement, maybe. Right. Instead of him being out there live. I'm not really sure how they kind of work that. I give him so many more props as the more shows I watch, because that's so tough to do one guy the whole show.
He's one of the best, man. He knows all the moves. He knows the guy's history. And like you said, it's probably post-production. So, but even so, it was just very clean and very pleasant to listen to. And the total elimination calls, like you said, is just adds so much to it.
Right, man.
So Sabu gets eliminated with the total elimination. And then New Jack, almost right away, comes off the top rope with a chair, which I guess is his finisher, right? Just jumps off the top rope with a chair, I think is his finisher. And hits Saturn with it, pins him. So the Gangstas retain, which, I mean, you would think, right? I mean, the other teams have just kicked the shit out of each other for an hour or so. But that being said, I still love this, I think. So
I loved it too, man. I mean, I had everybody is super over, so much chaos. I put that it was kind of cinematic to see Sabu ducking the Eliminators, seeing Tazz, and then you see RVD reaching his hand out, trying to hey, I'm trying to help you, and then just getting just taken out by Taz. I just like that even in this most chaotic of all chaos, they had some storytelling, and
Yeah.
some people will overlook that and say, well, of course we did say all the blood and all the stuff for this show, but there was definitely storytelling that we're building up to their eventual huge match on pay-per-view. So props to them for that.
Yeah, and we tie that up here in a little bit, but also in terms of storytelling, the inter-story between Rob Van Dam and Sabu is another point, because they had been fighting each other for several months, had a lot of brutal fights, but then eventually, because like at first Rob wouldn't shake his hand, and then vice versa, then it got kind of to a blood feud kind of thing, but then they started teaming together and then built a respect that way. And now they're in an effort to win the championship. So now they're finally like on the same page. So it's fun. It was fun to kind of see that come into fruition as well, on top of everything. So
I kind of forget that they were adversaries before they were a tag team, and more just synonymous with Bill Alfonso and being those two guys with them. Because when you see them on Raw, when they come through on Raw, they're together. Like,
yeah.
So it was pretty cool to see them actually as a team now, because I think they're great adversaries, but they're really good partners as well.
Oh, they're fun to watch either way, for sure. Yeah,
their styles complement for sure.
Speaking of Raw, we got a little gentleman that's on his way to Raw, Mr. Too Cold Scorpio, aka Flash Funk, is out here, and we're here to bid Scorpio a farewell. So Joey Styles is in the middle of the ring. He's like, look, we've seen a lot of great athletes come through ECW, and he's naming off like the Benoits, the Eddies, the Dean Malenkos, but none as decorated as this man. And then Too Cold Scorpio comes out, and then he gets in the middle of the ring. He's Joey Styles is hyping him up, like, God bless you, thank you for all you've done. We're gonna miss you. And Scorpio's like, what does he say? I forget how he leads. I know like what his like punchline is, but I feel like the lead up is all about it.
Yeah, I feel like I can't recall exactly what he said verbatim, but he definitely like led up with this like, like this humble little approach to it, and then he just ripped the rug from everybody there.
Look, every one of y'all, I'm not gonna miss not one of you motherfuckers. This is like, God damn it, Scorpio. You're the man.
Yeah.
He says he's not leaving, which is news to me. He's going to wrestle in both places. He's going to be wrestling for the World Wrestling Federation and ECW, which is quite the task, it sounds like. But he says that, hey, throw somebody out here. If they beat me, I'll leave ECW for 15 days. And then he says something about like, I know you want me to pass the torch for somebody. You want me to do the job. What? That ain't going to happen. So more like fourth wall breaking here. So out comes JT Smith, I believe is the first one, right? No.
Devin
Storm. Crowbar comes out.
The amount of solid, like underrated talent that was in this match, including Hack Meyers, I don't know. I was like, okay, like to everybody, probably nobodies, but in the grand scheme of things, they're guys that had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, longer careers. And Devin Storm, there were two guys that had Devin Storm signs in the crowd. Did you notice that?
I did. Was he? I guess he was over at this point, huh?
Yeah, he was like he's probably one of the. Which again, now it's so easy to be like, oh, the indie scene, like how many promotions are there? But back then, you could be the number one indie guy in the state, and people would know you, like, because you only went to so many promotions. So I feel like he definitely had a following there, but he was the first. And I will say, after watching this, seeing how, before he kind of turned heel on the fans, how over Too Cold Scorpio was, and his in-ring ability, I think he's one of the more underrated guys ever. That might not get the due, primarily because his stints didn't last long due to one thing or another, and that the fact that Flash Funk was never gonna work. So, because I loved his work in WCW, he was really great there.
Yeah, he teamed with Bagwell, right?
That's right.
Bit. Yeah, he was. I'm almost wondering if he came around a little too early. Maybe if he came around a few years later. But then again, he was very innovative at this point, so who knows? But
oh my god, yeah.
Still going at it today. Scorpio still throwing out moonsaults and stuff. It's wild,
man.
But yes, Devin Storm comes out, and it's pretty much just a 30-second squash.
Yep.
Scorpio lays him out and then goes to the top rope and hits like a Phoenix splash leg drop of some sort.
Man, I literally have the tumbleweed in parentheses Phoenix splash leg drop. I didn't know how else to put it, but he landed that thing. Back to WCW real quick on a tangent. He hits Benoit with one of those. I think Super Brawl 3, maybe. He lands right on, like his ass lands right on Benoit's head, and it's like, gee, I wonder what bad could come from this. You know,
dude, I watch Benoit matches. I see the chair shots he takes. It's like, oh
my God,
there's one family member.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, that move. I think he did it to Eddie too in ECW, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. It's an effective move, if nothing else, and takes out Crowbar. So Scorpio gets back on the mic. He's like, all right, throw somebody else. This time, whoever loses has to leave ECW for 30 days. So now comes JT Smith with Guido by his side. Guido wants in, but JT Smith, I guess, overpowers him.
Those guys, like, they were standing on the apron. Hey,
come on.
They were like, no, I want in. It was like they did it for like 15 seconds, and I thought it was so damn funny. Like them, because they're gonna lose, but they're like, no, I want to go in.
They should have both went in because JT Smith got handled pretty quickly here. Another pretty much squash, although I will shout out this monkey flip that Scorpio did to JT, and he just lands so easily on his feet, which was wild.
Yeah.
But it's short-lived because he gets knocked out. Moonsault from Scorpio for the win. And then
quick
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say on JT Smith, you know what he's really famous for, or what I know him as being famous for?
What's that?
So there's 2 ECW spots that happen. One where Mike Awesome does a dive and he's like bent. JT Smith's like bent against the guardrail. I'm pretty sure, and it looks awful. And I'm pretty sure the other one is he's like, I don't know if he tries to do a suicide dive, but he fails and like hits the floor. And it's one of like the most I swear I've seen this botch like a million times for just ECW ones. But that's all I like remember JT Smith. I didn't know he was a part of the FBI early on.
He's the patriarch. He started the FBI,
which is pretty wild.
Full-blooded Italian, this JT Smith, clearly. I mean, it was him.
Come on.
It goes him, then Guido, and then big Guido is around somewhere. I don't know what he was doing at this point. It's bullshitting somewhere.
You mean Sally Graziano?
Is that the same person?
Like he was like 500 pounds.
Oh, no. There's
are you talking about? Yeah, but there was another also Tracy Smothers.
Right. And then there's another guy that's not like fat, but he's like pretty jacked, but he's tall.
Well, Wildfire, Tommy Rich was also a part of it at a point. There might be another member we haven't mentioned because the only big Guido I know is Sally Graziano.
No, because there's big Sally, and I think there's another guy, Big Guido. Yeah, here we go. Michael Iorio? Let's see here.
Did he do anything else?
Full-blooded Italians. Oh, I think he might just showed up for one show. Yeah, it is. It was just Heatwave 96, and then I guess he left.
Big Guido did not last, but Big Dick Dudley did.
He's only 59? Interesting. Well, we hardly knew ye.
That's right. I didn't know.
Yeah, well, now you do. You're welcome.
That's right.
You're now better. And I know we were both sitting here watching the show, and we were like, gosh, man, I just need a little bit more Hack Meyers. And then we got him.
I was like, all right, I could do this chant again. Let's go.
Bandaged head. I mean, he's just all out of sorts here, but he wants a chance. Scorpio's no Shaw. He's a Shaw, so figures he'll give it a go. And Scorpio's like, all right, the next loser has to leave ECW for 60 days. And this one was a little bit more competitive, but ultimately Scorpio still wins with the 450. So now I love this, just a showcase for all the high flying moves he can do.
He hit the moonsault in the previous one. Do you think the fans cared what because to me, if you're doing 15 days, 30 days, and 60 days, and the 60-day one is Shaw, I'd be pissed. I was 2 months without the Shaw. You know,
Yeah.
do you think they cared about the 15 days for Devon Storm?
Honestly, I feel like there's like more than 15 days between shows at this point. So like, who cares?
Right. Come on next month.
Yeah. So yeah, no hack for 60 days, I guess.
Damn.
Scorpio still wants some though. So he says, all right, throw another one at me. Someone come take this torch from me. Next loser has to leave ECW for 1 year. And Hack's down. And Louis Spicoli comes out to, I guess, help Hack up or whatever, put him on the stretcher or whatever the hell. And then Scorpio's like, hey, Louis, come here, man. And he's basically insinuating that Louis Spicoli is going to be his mystery partner at Survivor Series tomorrow night, which is not the case.
Can't wait for Rad Radford to make that big debut again, that re-debut.
Man, it's crazy. He never it feels like such a tailor-made WWE guy. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe just too like wrestling, a little too.
He was too good in the ring. You needed to the gimmick needed to overshadow everything else you did back then because everything was a job. Right. If you were a wrestler, your wrestling was like secondary. That's why those guys flourished other places.
I know Rad Radford, like what he looked like and everything, but like what was the gimmick?
I think he was just like if I can recall without pulling it up, because I feel like I don't know. I just want to take a stab at it. I feel like he just wore like a flannel and was seemingly like a grungy, like Rad Radford. Like he's really cool and like grunge and Seattle. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's just a hipster, I guess.
Yeah, like just a guy that was around in that time because that also is not even a gimmick. Like I'd rather him just been Louis Spicoli or
right.
Him toting as an NWO member for that brief moment was something even.
Yeah, he's way more jacked than I remember. At least that was Rad Radford. He was. He's a pretty big boy. But
man, him, Cronus, a lot of these guys gone way too soon, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like Spicoli was like 98, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not that long after this, but so yeah, but Louis out here. Yep. He's gonna be the next one to take on Too Cold Scorpio. And ultimately, Louis is able to hit Scorpio with the Death Valley driver, the Spicoli driver.
There you go.
And gets the 1, 2, 3. So Louis wins. So Scorpio has to leave for 1 year, which does he ever come back?
Yeah, in 2 years. They said 1 year, and then I looked up his history, and he was done at the end of 98, I believe, in WWF. And he did some sort of stint with ECW mid 99, maybe. So 2 years. Because I was like, does he have a plan to come back? And then they re-signed him? Because I don't think WWE would have done a 1 year deal. 2 years seems like a baseline.
Well, I guess he honored it. I guess so. He's out for at least a year. Or is he? Because he says, no, I ain't leaving until somebody comes run me off. And then we hear War Machine on the speakers, and Tazz comes out and basically just scares him away. He says, hey, I'm going to choke you out if you don't leave, sir. And then Flash Funk's like, all right, say no more. I'm out of here. Tazz is like, bye-bye, Flash. So obviously poking fun at that. But
man, yeah, more of the fourth wall breaking. You know what? You mentioned it. And I guess I just like heard them talk about certain things like, I wonder, but maybe this time, the NWO, like you said, kind of influenced, hey, let's kind of peel back the curtain and let's say some things. They pointed out Paulie, we'll get there. Let's hear what happened to Paulie.
Man, well, so Tazz comes out. He says, and I quote, I want that scarred up motherfucker. Obviously Sabu. So he's calling out Sabu, and maybe you remember, I'm like loose on the details, but basically there was an agreement that Sabu and Tazz wouldn't fight for a while. Do you remember that story at all? Like Paul Heyman didn't want them to fight?
Yeah, I think it was loosely like Paulie knew, I think, that these guys had like a feud. Like it was already kind of set up, but when he knew maybe I can have this blow off at it, like if we're going to have a huge first show, let's try to make this last as long as possible. And that's why the angle that does happen is so important and how they were going nuts for literally, I don't know. Did you like the lights go out and it's a headlock and then that's all you get? Because I love that. I don't know. It was, I've never seen something like that. Normally they just cut the lights and no interaction, but it gave you a little taste of what you might see.
No, I thought it was great, especially because the lights out thing hadn't been overdone like it is today. So
God, AEW every House of Black comes out, or anybody comes out.
I mean, literally anybody returning or debuting.
Yeah.
We got the lights out.
Which I noted that it's easier to pull that off and not have everybody see who it is without cell phones. So it was nice that they could cut the lights for however long, and who knows who's in the ring. You know, they could get away with that. Now,
Right.
you know exactly who's there and where they're going.
Yeah, on TV they just have to like black out the screen, which is funny little loophole. But so Paul comes out because Taz is in the ring. He won't leave. Bob Ortiz gets in there, the ring announcer, and he's like, I've been instructed to tell you to leave because we have other matches coming. We need you to leave. And then Taz shoves Bob Ortiz. He's like, now you're my hostage. Just like, all right, Taz, settle down.
Yeah, chill.
It's just a wrestling show. The locker room empties. Paul Heyman comes out, which you don't really see Paul Heyman on screen a lot, at least at this point. So
they mentioned that. They
Yeah.
mentioned that he was just managing Sabu and RVD, but he had kind of not been doing that for a while. And it's great knowing that now he was behind the scenes the whole time. He was doing this is all him. He was part of a lot of this.
I think they called him like the executive producer or something, where they dumbed it down, whatever he was. But so Paul gets in the ring to confront Taz and ends up getting suplexed by Taz, which is funny to see Paul Heyman take a legit bump like this.
I didn't know it was coming, and he hooked up with. I was like, dude, he's gonna hit him with the T-bone. He just launched him.
And this wasn't like a watered down suplex, like, oh, I'm gonna do it. Not like what the Bucks did to Tony Khan, where they're coddling him like a newborn baby. This was I'm gonna drop you on your head like you're one of the boys kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was, and I know Paulie he wasn't as big as he kind of is now, like weight wise, but he's still not a small dude. And Taz just like, it was nothing, because again, Paulie's not a wrestler, and that shows you Taz's strength. Taz could be a tiny dude, but he is flinging people like it's nothing.
Yeah, all adds to his mystique, man. But then he locks in the choke on Paulie, and then the lights go out. That's the last straw, because the lights come back on, and Sabu is in the ring face to face with Taz. For like a year, maybe over a year, they've been building to this. No interactions between these two. And like you said, building to Barely Legal. We got just a taste. Because like you said, because the lights come on, they're on opposite corners of the ring. They run at each other, and then the lights go out. And then that's it. The crowd boos, but man.
Oh, yeah.
That left everybody wanting this match, tenfold. So, yeah, I was a big fan of this, for sure. I feel like
I also like just knowing that was it February when they invaded the Hammerstein? I think that was right, like, so what, 4 months after this show, and you get the Sabu fears Taz and Sabu falling off the letters, and it's just all those things like being a part of this storyline. Like, I love that it would already been a year and they still made it last till April and had a great payoff. I'm looking at you, Eric Bischoff and Starrcade 97.
You don't like stupid Sting in his cutoff shirt, and oh man,
I don't like the creative control and the lack of communication when it should have just been a Sting win and Hogan could get the belt back literally any other time.
Dude, I'm watching because I'm in my timeline. I'm at the point where Sting becomes the white face paint guy.
Yeah,
and I hate watching this, knowing like what it culminates to, but.
It's so depressing because it's
the
so
ride's
good.
fun, I guess. Yeah,
of course. And then it's a crash.
Yeah, well, so that's where we're staying with Taz and Sabu. So good stuff there. And Scorpio's gone. Flash Funk's on the way. And that brings us to the ECW World Title match. We got the champion, the Sandman, taking on Raven. So last time I covered ECW on here, Raven was the champion, but I believe he was out with an injury, so he had Stevie defend the title for him on TV, in which Sandman beat him. So Sandman is kind of newly crowned. Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, we're in the midst of this storyline where Raven has I don't know, psychologically abducted Sandman's family. You got cracked out Lori Fullington, who's Sandman's ex-wife. You got the son, Tyler, who's in the Raven leather jacket doing the Raven pose.
I love this.
Mean, visually. I mean, this is fresh off of the crucifixion angle, too.
Yeah, where Kurt Angle said, I'll see you guys later.
Dude, yeah, that's wild. What a fumble that was, but...
Can you imagine Kurt Angle versus Taz in 97?
Dude, it's like, it was so interesting. I watched that episode where they had Kurt Angle come out. He was, giving them all his praise for his gold medal. Yeah, just happy to be there. He didn't know what was going on. He wasn't a wrestling fan. He's on commentary with Joey Styles during like a Taz match with somebody.
Yeah.
And he's just like trying to grasp what pro wrestling is. He's like, oh, why doesn't he's grabbing the ropes. Why do you have to break the submission? So he's like learning the rules as he's out there. Obviously, we know what he would come up to be. But yeah, I mean, to your point, him and Taz, I mean, it all ended up well for Kurt Angle, obviously. But it was just
and me being a Pittsburgh guy, he's a revered legend here, and it's crazy that you go to Philadelphia where things might not line up depending on the sports teams that you're a fan of, but a Pittsburgh guy going to Philly, the first time he's at this show, there's a crucifixion angle and he gets out of there, never to be seen again. So he's probably scarred with Philly.
Yeah, it's man. Yeah, he'd be in ECW eventually, right? In like 2006.
Oh, yeah. The real ECW.
Yeah. So we got Sandman versus Raven here. And Raven, he's like, I'm going to out-wrestle Sandman. I know you guys just want bloodshed, but I'm going to show you that I can out-maneuver Sandman. And before Sandman comes out, we got the BWO back out there, who are now in suits, crop top suits.
Hilarious.
Is that what I mean?
First of all, Joey Styles' suit, did you notice how big it was on him? He was swimming in that suit. Right, and that was the 90s. That's just what it looked like. But the BWO suits, yeah. Blue Meanie always wore a crop top and owned it. But everybody else seemed like they just wanted to have that just that look, a uniformed look. But I love that.
Yeah, and Stevie says that he's going to do commentary on this match, which I'm like, okay, he's going to join Joey Styles. That'll be fun. Nope. He's just going to sit ringside with a live microphone over the loudspeakers and do commentary, which is just, I don't know, man. But like you said, I was disappointed that we didn't get a Sandman entrance. He just kind of busts out there. Makes sense, though. I mean, he's got his family out there. It's like, I'm not going to do the whole rigmarole of the Metallica deal. But I'm curious to what you think about this match, because it felt like this is a match. I think they tried too much wrestling, for lack of a better term.
I mean, you mentioned how Raven literally says at the beginning, I don't want to give you blood. I'm going to out wrestle him. And meanwhile, as he's saying this, I'm just thinking of how many Raven matches I've seen and Sandman matches I've seen where that is their bread and butter. Why are we trying to go around what brought us here? Specifically, when this literally could be defined as a blood feud. You took his son and wife and are have them as your cult following of all times to make something blood and not just a straight up wrestling match. This would have been it, but they didn't do it. So, it is what it is. I just felt maybe it was just Metallica not playing that kind of threw me off.
Right, there's no foreplay for this.
Normal. No, come on.
Because Raven does get busted open at some point. I believe it's it's like a gas can, like a random gas can ringside he hits him with.
Not the red ones that are plastic, like an actual gas can. Tin that who knows what that was for or who brought that or where they found it. But
there's no flaming tables on this show. I feel like I would remember that. I don't know. I guess somebody just brought a gas can.
Yeah, or ukulele guy.
Yeah, this guy grabbed with whatever's on the way out the door.
Or maybe New Jack left it.
That actually checks because he just throws the trash can in the ring, right? So there's probably a gas can.
Who knows what's in there?
That's actually probably it. But yeah, Raven's busted open. But ultimately, it feels like there's not a ton of energy to this one. I don't know. Maybe it's just like I said, there's a lot of like arm work by Raven in the beginning. And it kind of just,
Except when Lori tries to hit Sandman with the cane.
what in the bluest of Blue World Order hell? What is was that like deliberate?
So hard. No, it wasn't deliberate. She tried so damn. The worst part is that like normally in these spots, I would wager, okay, they don't want to hurt who it is. They want to make it a little lighter, whatever. Like, I'm going to try to hit him, but I'm not going to make it look crazy. She looked like she was taking actual hacks at it. Hack, Sandman, Hack Meyers, whichever. And every 4 in a row. And then they were just like, whatever, I'm just going to, like, it was so brutal. And she went over his head.
Yeah.
Just swing down. She's a smaller person. You'd have thought maybe she would have connected easier, but that was honestly like the highlight to me.
It's like, why is she aiming for the head? Like, this isn't T-ball. Hit him in the broad back. Hit him in the legs. Like,
give him a low blow. Everybody else did.
Exactly. Like, because I didn't know if because she was very like she's being portrayed as like a very deranged, like just worn down lady. So I was like, oh, are they just playing up to how like delusional she is, or whatever? But it was just very.
I will make a hesitant note on how did you say cracked out earlier? I'm not sure if you
I did, yes.
Being legitimate. Did you notice? Again, this could be all character work. Who the hell do I know? I'm just a guy who does wrestling podcasts. Whenever they were introducing Raven and Lori was there, she was kind of like.
Yes.
Like fidgeting with her arm. Was that intentional? Or dare I say a shoot? A shoot up?
Oh, I see what
like,
you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like marijuana, shooting marijuana, right? I'm with you.
Absolutely.
I do drugs. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like to think that's all character work, but it's probably a little bit of column A, column B. Method acting. I couldn't perhaps.
Help method.
That's a lot of fun. look at us.
Look at the adjective. Play.
Well, look at this adjective. I don't know. But so yeah, Lori misses a bunch of cane shots just bizarrely. I feel like it takes more effort to miss somebody with a cane.
It looked so. She tried so hard and it failed so bad.
I mean, she was swinging for the fences too, but eventually, I think one maybe kind of hits. I don't know, or doesn't like Raven just take it and like?
Yes, he's like, I'm done with this. That's why I felt that it was not on purpose. Like she was supposed to just crack him once. Couldn't do it. 0 for 4.
Well, shit. Then Raven follows us up with 2 even. Okay, is Raven's DDT the even flow DDT, or is that Tommy Dreamer's? Yeah. Okay,
that's Raven's.
Because I know it called it the Raven effect in WWF, so that's why it gets me confused. I don't know if like
even flow because it's Pearl Jam. His character was very grunge, so that lined up.
I see. Well, he hits 2 of them on Sandman, but only gets a 2 count. And then I think the BWO, they're throwing a piece of the guardrail into the ring.
God, I didn't know that happened this early in wrestling because I feel like later on it kind of would appear, but the guardrail was, you got to really, it takes a lot of work to put that in.
No, like I said, it was the whole faction had to help put this thing in there. And it's actually been kind of a staple for this feud. A couple of matches have ended with Raven DDTing Sandman onto the guardrail, leaning up against the corner in the ring. But boy, how the turns have tabled, because Sandman nails the DDT onto Raven on the guardrail and gets the 1, 2, 3. So Sandman retains. Also, we skipped over the whole BWO involvement here. I think Stevie goes for a super kick on Sandman, but accidentally kicks Raven.
Yep.
Blue Meanie's already on the top rope. He's about to do a moonsault. He's not looking back. So he's like, oh, I'm sure Sandman's probably down right behind me. But lo and behold, it's Raven. So the BWO miscommunication, they end up kicking the shit out of Raven leading up to that DDT. So,
yep.
But yeah, I think it's kind of kicked in a little bit towards the end, but yeah,
it picked up towards the end.
Yeah.
like I said, the story was so again for ECW, the story was very well done, and yet the match, they literally told you we're not doing the match that should be for this angle, and it showed.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Like, I guess that was maybe an effort because, like I said on this show, there's way more in-ring wrestling than typically you would see. So I don't know if this is them trying to clean up the image or just trying something new. I don't know, but
I mean, they already messed it up with Kurt Angle. Let's get some in-ring work. Maybe he'll watch this show and come back.
We'll show him.
That's right.
Well, that brings us to the main event here. We got what I guess is a November to Remember tradition. It's a dream tag team match or dream partner match. So you got two guys, which in this case, so there's a lot of moving parts here. So we're in the midst of Shane Douglas feuding with the Pitbulls. This is when Shane Douglas broke the neck of Pitbull number 1 for reals. So Pitbull number 1 is in a halo, is bolted to his head, the neck brace, may never wrestle again. Eventually
when they do the thing when he like shakes it, oh man. I don't care where they were kayfabe wise, like if he had healed or whatnot yet. That is nuts to even like try.
I mean, because the thing's like bolted in his head, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how halos work. So that's like, I feel like so many things could go wrong. Because this is on TV. There was a match. Pitbull number 1 got in the ring. Shane Douglas grabs him by the halo, shakes him back and forth, and throws him. I mean, it is gnarly. And that's another situation where they like.
But the crucifixion was too much.
Yeah, I think it's might have all been on the same show, or at least like back-to-back shows. So it's like,
wow.
Yeah, a lot going on. So, but then the whole show, Joey, it's very similar to the NWO stuff where commentary is like, oh, this isn't a part of the show. You know, we like to have fun here. We like to have entertainment, but this is just too far. And like WWF's doing the same thing with Stone Cold and the Pillman with his gun. Like this is all happening at once. Like this is where we're at. So it's very obvious is like a tonal shift in wrestling. So,
and you quickly, you mentioned commentary back on the BWO commentary. That's when, even though Stevie was being obnoxious, that's when Joey Styles said that he's better than Eric Bischoff, he's better than Tony Schiavone, and he's better than Vince McMahon. He actually knows the moves. And then he was like, no one's better than Kevin Kelly, which I still think he meant as a good thing. I know now I feel like things have kind of have turned on Kevin Kelly in more recent years. But at the time, 96, he was definitely like a fresher face to know more moves. He was their answer to Mike Tenay, which you can't top Mike Tenay, but you know, so I think that was actually praiseworthy. But
I would think, I mean, Kelly was better than Vince, that's for sure. But
oh yeah,
what a maneuver! Fuck off.
It always is interesting though with Vince on commentary, because like the act of him being commentator was to me like a genius move, because if he wants the company to look how he wants it, who better to tell you what he wants than him, you know?
Right.
And no one really was aware of that, you know, until like later on. But I always thought that was a really smart move. Like, why wouldn't you put over your own product so hard on commentary?
So, couldn't have said it better myself. And Stevie, by the way, him, because he would call the moves that Raven was doing. Like, oh, he's got him in a wrist lock. Oh, he's got him in another cravat or whatever. And then he's like, Raven does some shit that Stevie, I guess, doesn't know what it is. And he's like, oh, no, it's pretty self-explanatory. You all see what's happening. It's so good. But then Sandman starts doing moves and he stops doing commentary. So non-biased, though. Non-biased. But so we got Douglas and the Pitbulls going at it. And we also got Tommy Dreamer and Brian Lee feuding. Now we're fresh off of Brian Lee choke slamming Tommy Dreamer off the balcony. Also, we are even fresher off of Brian Lee choke slamming Pitbull off the balcony. Pitbull number 2, the uninjured one. Pitbull Bald, some people know him as. And so that effectively, because Pitbull number 2 was originally going to be teaming with Tommy Dreamer, but that took him out. So Tommy Dreamer had to phone a friend, pulled in old Terry Funk to team with him. And so we got a tag team match, Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer versus Brian Lee and Shane Douglas. So There's another match where I feel like, I don't know. I feel like something was missing. Like, it was fun, especially at the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know. What'd you think about this one?
My first note, Francine, roll tide.
Yeah, she's a
Man,
healthy,
and
a
I
healthy
love,
dame.
and same with Beulah, very easy on the
Mhm.
eyes. And now, like as you see where they were, and the insane chants that were happening during this particular match towards Francine, and although they gave the same type of energy, I feel like towards Tammy Sitch, Sunny, whenever she was in ECW,
Yeah.
it is wild and, ironically enough, sobering to see that Beulah, Francine, they're still kind of doing appearances. They're still around, and they
Mhm.
seem like healthier and in good places. Yet, not everybody's doing that well. And it was maybe it slipped my mind. I didn't realize that Beulah and Tommy Dreamer were actually married and have kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Look at that.
amazing because I love the story. I love that. It was such a little like storyline thing back in the day, and I don't know.
They met at
Life
summer
imitating
camp
art.
when they were
That's right.
kids, when they were 8 years old or whatever, and
That's right.
he finished that story. Gotta love him. Yeah,
But I thought the match was okay. Like for the double main event, I thought this was probably better than the first match.
Mhm.
Because we had Terry Funk and it's more of a wild card.
Right.
And there was just a lot of interesting stuff. More like a moonsault from Terry Funk. I know he did do that a lot, but it's still to the outside. He's 53. I could watch that all day.
Terry Funk looked jacked, by the way. Just gotta throw that out
Yeah.
there. For
Was this
53
the
even.
first time he came back since?
It's
Well,
been
he
a
was in WCW
while.
until like 93, 94, and then I think he was just kind of out of the loop. But this is right as he, I think, got in for the run where he eventually wins the title at Barely Legal.
Right. Yeah, he had made a few one-off appearances. He had a match with Cactus Jack and maybe a tag match here or there, but yeah, this is kind of him returning for his run, like you said. And Underfaker, man, looked pretty good out there. I think he chokeslammed Tommy Dreamer through a table at some point, I believe.
Yeah. Surprising too. I didn't realize he was alive. Some of these guys, I just kind of yeah.
Oh,
I was kind of getting them confused with the Brian Clark, Brian Adams.
that happens.
Chronic.
I always forget which one it is, unfortunately.
And we got Brian Lee too. So it's like, oh, he's not one of those two guys, but he's alive. And
yeah,
I think Adam Bomb is still alive, but the other is not.
What's Adam Bomb and Crush, right?
Yeah.
Or is that someone else? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Brian Adams, whichever Adam Bomb is alive. I know that for sure. Because he's still he was doing some I know he did some work with the Major Wrestling Figure Pod. So like they got some new figures, I think, coming out with him. But he had all those Adam Bomb footballs still from his original run. So I'm pretty sure he's still kicking.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Lee, Underfaker. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, something like that. Shane Douglas throws out a pile driver off the apron through a table onto Terry Funk, which is pretty gnarly. Got Underfaker throwing out a tombstone, of course he is, onto Tommy Dreamer for a 2 count. Maybe the spot of the match. Beulah comes in the ring, hits Francine with a cooking sheet. So of course, right? That's what they know how to swing. Then Shane Douglas comes in and gives Beulah a belly to belly. I mean, all of this is just a lot of chaos here at the last few minutes here. Then Terry Funk, like you said, does a moonsault from the top rope into the crowd onto everybody, which is just... And then he follows it up with or was this before or after the spinning toe hold?
I think this was before.
So you lead up to a spinning toe hold with a moonsault to the
Well, that's his finish.
What do you think of the spinning toe hold?
I think it's a legendary move, but I don't know where it sits in the pantheon of wrestling now. I feel like
it's a very polite way to put it. Okay.
Yeah. Did you notice what Joey Styles said as Funk was climbing the top rope to do that moonsault?
Remind me.
Is he lost?
Yeah, I mean, Could be.
He's
Could
nuts,
be.
man. He's nuts.
He's a man.
Legend.
But then ultimately, Tommy Dreamer hits Brian Lee with the TV camera, which, I mean, a giant piece of machinery, that thing. It made a crazy sound when it hit him. And Terry Funk hits Brian Lee with the DDT. It feels like this everybody's finish at this point. Right. But it works. And Terry Funk makes the pinfall on Brian Lee, and they get the win. So Funk and Dreamer win. And but that's not how the show ends. The show ends with, the heels, they beat up on Dreamer and Funk. And so Douglas and Brian Lee and maybe some other people are in there. And we hear the music of Pitbull, not the rapper. Pitbull number 2 comes out, which if he's in his gear, he's got his singlet on, his boots on. Why wasn't he just in the match? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, he could have just been in this match, but it's an easy way to get Terry Funk in there.
I guess you can't bump Terry Funk off the card, but which is just so fun. Like, he got a huge pop though. Pitbull number 2.
Yeah, well, and maybe that's what they were trying for. Like, hey, this guy's a part of the angle, but we're not going to have him in the match, and maybe people will kind of forget that fact, and then you get the good win for the good guys. But once things go south, then you can bring in the guy from the angle, and it ties it all together, and then you can set up the future.
Yeah. No, yeah, it made sense. Apparently it worked. I mean, look, in the Attitude Era, everybody was always comparing Goldberg to Stone Cold. Like, each company has the bald badass. But I dare say Pitbull number 2 may have set the tone for the big bald badass. So
yeah, he looked like a hoss in there. He was doing some pretty nice work. Double clothesline.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have to. I mean, he did a military press, and like I said, double clothesline. He's very Goldberg-esque. He's like, it's like he might drop a guy on his head every now and then, but he's badass and he has muscles. So it worked, and that's the closing image is Pitbull number 2 making the save. And like I said, just a strange end, but it was a hot end, I guess. So I can't complain too much, but. Yeah.
I felt like the crowd went home. They went home happy. I felt like the whole end of the night, like I said, the double main event, quote unquote. I'm glad that the matches were in. Maybe I don't know. Maybe live it wasn't that way. Like we only see what's shown to us. So maybe that match wasn't technically last. But I don't know if they would have done the Sandman Raven match last. How it went. I think this was a perfect way to end it with Pitbull coming out and making the save. So. In that regard, at least the actual closing part of the main event satisfied.
Right. Yeah. Mr. Worldwide. That's how we end the show. Can't complain. But yeah, man, that brings November to Remember 96 to a close. Any other closing thoughts on this extreme show that you watched?
Man, it was just a great trip down memory lane. When you approached me about what shows to watch potentially, we did throw around World War III, like a WCW show, and I'm like, all right, let's go. But then we pivoted, and I'm actually thrilled that I watched this show because I got the full unedited version, and to watch it like that, it's like the only way. Like, I could have watched it on Peacock, and I don't believe I would have had as much fun because you hear the chants. Unedited, you hear everything, and there were some crazy things said on this show, and just everything was fun, and it really just brings back that ECW, like I think I said earlier, was truly an alternative. Like, they were not trying to really compete; they were just showing like we got all this as a buffet for fans, and our fans love it. We sold this show out so quick, and they're on their way to their big moment in April. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they are drinking the juice of fans. They're drinking the juice. They're drinking the Kool-Aid, Where can everybody find the juice box? Let's try to segue into your show. No, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you checking out the show, coming on, discussing it. We'll do WCW down the line for sure.
Oh, man. I can't wait.
But in the meantime, where can everybody find you and listen to your sultry voice and all that stuff?
Oh, thank you. Sultry voice, Apron Bob. Yeah, you can find me. It's the Juice Box, as you can see by my my head kind of floating in and out there. of the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. It's my podcast. I do it every week, at least one episode a week. If I do some sort of interview or a double night of WrestleMania prediction show, I'll have multiple episodes. But Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I just recently have the RSS feed thrown to YouTube. So youtube.com/JuicySteen. You can also find it there if you listen to podcasts there. But yeah, man, I'm thrilled to be on here. And this is a great show. I'm glad you reached out. So
Yeah, man.
can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, I'll watch Seinfeld between now and then, and we'll have a more in-depth discussion, I guess, because that's what everybody wants, I think. So
I would like to hear your thoughts. And I'm not gonna. I pride myself. When I went to school, I have a journalism degree, so I'm very easily unbiased, even if I like a product.
Okay.
So I want to hear your unfiltered, true thoughts, and we'll discuss.
Well, I think Kramer was right, and here's why.
Once again, thank you to Juice for joining me on today's episode. It was a lovely, lovely time with Juice. Go check out his podcast, The Juice Box. Go follow him on the social medias. Follow me as well. You know what all that's all about. But hey, you know what we gotta do? Sorry, I'm doing a lot of hitting my desk today. It's trying to get everybody hyped up. EC Dub. Hey, let's hit that jingle, baby. WCW, ECW, WWF. Who's the hardest promotion? Eric or Vince or Paulie? I think we can agree, though, it's mostly shit. Alrighty then. What are we grading this show, folks? What are we grading this show? First of all, if you are new to this, I'm sharing my screen on the YouTube version, so you can walk through visually if you would like. But if you're listening in audio land, I'll walk you through it as well. But basically, we'll get into it. But we're looking at WWF, WCW, and ECW. We're going to compare all of these companies from an in-ring perspective, out of ring, the show quality, the rosters, all of this stuff, right? We're going to look at the best and the worst that they all have to offer. Right now, WWF is in the lead with 13 points, WCW with 5, ECW with 4. This is the last ECW show of the year, so we'll see how that fleshes out. But we also take into account TV and stuff like that, so we'll see where we end up at the end of the year. But how are these points derived? Well, let's get into it. The first thing we got to do is grade this show from a scale of S to F. S being one of the best shows of all time, F being a show that I'd rather wrap my penis in barbed wire and throw myself off a building hanging by it. That was so vulgar for no reason. I'm sorry. But it's appropriate, right? It's EC Dub. EC Dub. All right, what are we grading this show? So I'm thinking either B or C. I think this show was on track for being possibly an A until those last two matches, and I think it kind of ended on a flat tire, you know? So let's see here. Natural Born Killer's got a C. I think this show is significantly better than that. I'm gonna throw a B at this one. We're gonna throw a B at November to Remember. I think that's fair. So we go over to this next tab and we look at the three promotions and what their average grades are so far. WWF is still in the lead with a 3.9, which I believe is like a C+. ECW has like a D+. Unfortunately, they have a few F shows earlier in the year. So WWF still holds on to the highest overall average grade. So they maintain those 6 points. So no changes there. Best pay-per-view, worst pay-per-view, no changes here. WrestleMania 12 got an A. WCW Super Brawl got an F. Pretty cut and dry there. In-ring. So best overall, we're tracking WWF as the best overall in-ring product. I will say ECW, from an in-ring perspective, they've kind of been lagging in the past couple shows that I've covered. It's been very heavy on like the hardcore street fight. Like obviously it's fucking ECW. There's going to be hardcore stuff, but it's felt like that's all they've been offering for the past few months. Like they haven't had that kind of foundational, You know, when they had like Dean Malenko and Eddie and Benoit and all those guys, they've kind of been lacking that. But with the introduction of Chris Candido and overall, and we talked about it, there was just a lot of in-ring wrestling on this show. And even the stuff that is kind of chaotic is in a good way. So ECW moved up the rankings just in my head, right? But is it better than what WWF is putting out? Also, WCW, they've got the cruiserweight division it's established. It's kind of the Ray and Dean show as of right now. But that's pretty much all they got from in-ring, right? So I think WWF still holds on to this. I think just from top to bottom, they're just more consistent. So WWF holds on to that. 4 points. Best match, Shawn Diesel from In Your House 7. On this show, November to Remember, what was the match of the night? Hard to say. I guess the tag team match, right? Just because I have fun. It was just a fun match. Like I don't know. Candido Whipwreck was okay. Kid Cash and Stevie Richards was fine. Yeah, nothing on the show was the best match of the year. That's for sure. So WWF still holds on to that 2 points. Worst match, we're tracking Ultimate Warrior versus Goldust from In Your House 7. Yeah, nothing on this show was worse. There weren't any like super. There were a few boring matches on this show, but nothing as egregious as Warrior versus Goldust. So WWF holds on to that -1 point. Roster and star power. So the best overall, we're currently tracking WCW, and I've gone over it before, but they got like at the top, they got your Hogan, you know, Nash, Hall, Macho Man, Flair, all those guys, right? You got the cruiserweight division, you got the tag teams, like that. From top to bottom, they've got a really dense, powerful roster. WWF, well, let's just think what's changed since we've last looked at this. What would sway this back or forth? ECW has gained Chris Candido. That's something. Kid Cash is here. You know what I mean? Like, but they've lost Jericho, so I wouldn't say ECW overtook it or anything. And WWF, I mean, they gained fucking Terry Gordy. I'll tell you this. In the Survivor Series episode, there might be more to talk about because I think there might be a little bit more flux at that point with Scorpio leaving and a couple other things. So The Rock debuting, things like that. So no changes here as far as the overall, I think. I think WCW just has a really good roster at this point. Wrestler of the Year, we're tracking Mankind. Story-wise, in-ring-wise, he's been killing it. Just had that Buried Alive match with The Undertaker. That was sensational. Also, the Mind Games match with Shawn. And, of course, you know, just the character work across different promotions. Mick Foley's killing it. Anybody on this show... And we're also tracking Ultimate Warrior as the worst. Both from WWF, so... Anyone on the show spark a best or the worst conversation is the question. Shane Douglas is doing some good work. I don't know if he's consistent enough in ring for him to be in the best of the year conversation, but that's somebody that's on my mind. Let me pull up my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. Maximize. Tazz is killing it, man. Tazz had a good showing on this show. But I just don't think, like, because Tazz, he's had some very entertaining squash matches, right? He hasn't had a lot of competitive matches to accompany his great character work. His presentation's on point. And this show was fucking awesome. The stuff with Sabu, him suplexing Paul Heyman, like that's great stuff. I don't think he has the catalog of matches to match Mick Foley here. So, in '97, I think he's a front runner, but '96, he's put on the stove. He's starting to boil, but I don't think he starts boiling over until early 97, mid 97. So let me make sure. Let me look through my notes here. Axel Rotten, Jack Meyers, the Eliminators. They've been doing some good stuff from a character perspective and in ring, but I don't think that's best of the year category or territory. RVD is still very new at this point. Sandman, Raven. Raven's had a good year, but not best, I don't think. Maybe best of ECW, but and Shane Douglas, like I said, yeah, nobody's touching Mankind, I don't think, as of now. Nor do I think anybody is worse. I mean, anybody on this show, I don't think anybody, no one crossed my mind as like, man, this was shit. I'm sick of seeing this person. Devin Storm, Gangstas. There was a point where I really didn't like the Gangstas, but I'm telling you, man, you add in the legit music, you start enjoying their matches. It adds a lot. It adds a lot. Yeah, nobody on this show. I mean, Axel Rotten maybe was the bottom for me, but not as bad as Warrior. But we're gonna have to confront this at some point. Probably not this episode, but Warrior just had a very short run in 96. So the question is, like, yeah, what he did was bad, but was it significant enough to be worst of the year? This might be something we tackle in the finale of this, but that's just something to consider. So now we move on to Out of Ring. So we've seen no changes yet. Score still remains the same. Out of Ring. So this is gimmicks, characters, promos, storylines. Best overall, I think ECW. I mean, ECW just keeps getting stronger. You know what I mean? From top to bottom. And I've talked about this before. Like, WCW has the NWO, which is probably the best thing going at this point. But it's pretty much all they have. They got, I mean, everything stems from the NWO. So I think they're kind of a one-trick pony. Now, that pony is a fucking strong pony. Huge dong on that pony. A racing pony, some may say. But it's a one-trick pony. I don't know if that metaphor made sense. But ECW is just more from top to bottom, more diverse. Like I said, I rattled them off earlier. The Dudleys. You got the Shane Douglas Pitbull stories. You got Sandman and Raven. You got Brian Lee and Tommy Dreamer. Beulah, Francine. Eliminators, Gangstas. The full-blooded Italians, the Dudley. I said the Dudleys, but there's got so many branches there, and Sabu and Rob Van Dam. Like they got so much stuff going on at one time, and WWF has like nothing going on at this point. I mean, they do have Stone Cold going on, so we can't just brush that out the way. It's still early on in Steve Austin. But he is really cooking. We've reached the point where they did the Pillman's Got a Gun angle on Raw. So Stone Cold's cooking. Again, this might be something we tackle in the Survivor Series episode because he's facing Bret Hart. So that might be a point of contention there. But as of right now, I think ECW holds on to this. The best overall out-of-ring product. So they keep those 4 points. Best character storyline. I said it earlier, and I still think it's true. NWO is the best thing going. So WCW holds on to that 2 points. Worst character / storyline. Jerry Lawler. Yeah, nothing on this show is worse than that. So, yeah, just general Jerry Lawler feuds all across the year. Just everything's terrible. So yeah, that being said, no changes here. No changes. So WWF still holds the lead at 13 points. WCW with 5, ECW with 4. Now, while this is the last ECW show of the year, things can still swing and they still have a shot. And we will have a finale episode where I'll have you guys this will be a live show. You guys can give your input. You can send in your input. I'll give more information when we get closer, but it'll be a little bit more of a collaborative kind of thing there. So I'm willing to take input from all of you. Let me know. Join the Discord if you want to talk about it, or send me a DM, or send me a message on Grindr, or whatever it is, 50 feet away. So with that, I think that's about all Daddy has for you today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Appreciate you all. Always appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys listening, watching, touching, all of that stuff. So y'all take care of yourselves. Wash your ass. And hey, I'm hard.
And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it.